ISIS brides really are the worst elements you can bring back to your country. Absolute treacherous individuals, because unfortunately we are living under a very weak Labor government, and said, well, stuff you, we're going to go over and support terrorism.
Hi everybody, and welcome back to Nick Talks. This episode's amazing guest, first time on the channel, all the way from down under, is Steve Christou from the Libertarian Party in Sydney, Australia. How you doing, Steve?
Good, thanks, Nikki. Thanks for having me on.
You're more than welcome. What specifically I want to talk about today with you about one thing. I saw a tweet of yours last week, and for people who don't follow you on Twitter, your contact details will be in the description of the video, so please go and follow Steve on X. I still call it Twitter. And it shocks me. You basically said the ISIS brides, which was basically Australian citizens who left Australia to join ISIS, who are traitors by it. I mean, that's not a derogatory term, that's a technical term. They're traitors, went to fight for our enemies, then the whole dream collapsed, and now they're stuck in Syria in camps. And your government secretly has allowed them to come back and are funding their lifestyles back in Australia under the guise of we need to reintegrate them back into society. Well, I'll tell you this, if you couldn't integrate them while they were born there and raised there and had all the benefits of a first world country, you're not going to integrate them once they've come back from a terrorist lifestyle slot. I mean, the things they did over there were absolutely horrendous. But anyway, first of all, welcome to the show, Steve. I went on a bit of a rant then.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Matt.
Tell me what's going on. Tell me about that tweet.
Okay, well, this is the second batch of ISIS brides that the Labor federal government has unashamedly brought back to Australia. They brought them back a year and a half, 2 years ago, the first batch, and they're claiming that we have a responsibility to bring them back. They're Australian citizens, yada yada yada. And the realities are, these are women that abandoned their country, stuck up the middle finger to Western society and our values, and said, well, stuff you, we're going to go over and support terrorism. And, they were married to men that went over and fought for ISIS. And, and a lot of them made very derogatory remarks on the way out of the country. Now that the dream has collapsed and ISIS has been defeated and their men are dead, they suddenly remember the generous welfare system that Australia has. And they want to come back to Australia. And unfortunately, this Prime Minister is a very weak individual under the Albanese Labor government. They welcome them back with open arms. And they let back the first batch of ISIS brides a year and a half, 2 years ago. And now they secretly let back the second batch of ISIS brides in Australia, all the while whilst lying to the Australian people that they had no involvement and they were somehow helped out of Syria by refugee camps and Lebanese authorities. Well, tell me this. To get back to Australia, they needed to be issued Australian passports through the Foreign Office. So they're taking the Australian people for months.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to Australia. I went there for 4 weeks, backpacking around about 20 years ago. I had to have a passport. I had to be checked at the airport. I had to buy a visa. And someone with none of these can just get into Australia. I don't think so. You have to be helped to get into Australia by the government itself. Now, we've got the same problem in the UK. This all happened under the Tory government. Our Tory government, absolutely awful. But they were slightly strong on this, so they refused entry to the ISIS brides, and the people went over there fighting, and they actually stripped them, or some of them, of their citizenship, which was fantastic. We've got 2 cases in the UK. The one not many people have heard of is a guy called Jack Letts. He had Canadian dual nationality, born in England, middle class parents. His parents actually at one time ran an organic farm. That's how middle class his parents were. He converted to Islam, went to ISIS to help them. They sent him money. They got arrested for aiding and abetting terrorism. and then we won't let him back. We stripped him of citizenship and we dumped him basically on the Canadians. We stripped him first, your problem. But the famous case in the UK is a woman called, what's she called? Shamida Begum. Her and her two friends left when they were 15. They were grade A students in a school in London, well educated. They left the UK, went through Turkey, went to Syria, all got married. Her two friends are dead, got blown up, killed. And she wants to come back. We've stripped her of her citizenship. And the reason why I mentioned the first guy first, because he was white. He was white, was originally a Christian, middle-class white parents. This had nothing to do with colour. This was to do with protecting our country. You're traitors. We used to hang traitors. We don't do that anymore. Maybe we should, but we've not allowed her to come back. Why haven't the Australian government started stripping people of their citizenship?
Because unfortunately, we are living under a very weak Labor government. This Prime Minister has probably overseen the worst government in Australia's history. People that are not integrating, refugees are being welcomed back with open arms, from very dangerous countries, and they're just not integrating or refusing to assimilate into, Western culture and our society. And they're bringing back the worst elements. And these ISIS brides really are the worst elements you can bring back to your country. Absolute treacherous individuals, dangerous individuals. Who knows? Nobody knows if they've been stripped of this terrorist mentality. They're bringing back their children who were born overseas into terrorism. And these people have not been vetted properly and security checked properly. But quite frankly, forget all that. It's best they just be stripped of their citizenship and not be brought back and let them rot in refugee camps overseas because they are absolute treacherous traitors to this country.
Absolutely. You just said then that your Labour government's terrible. I'll introduce you one day to our Labour government, which is the worst government we've ever had in this country as well. And the polls show it to be true. There's two issues with me with the ISIS brides. The first one is obvious. Can we trust these people? And it's not just ISIS brides, it's the ISIS fighters. Some of them will be Australians, Australian men. At the height of ISIS in the UK, we had more Muslims leave this country to fight for ISIS than were in the British Army. So imagine that for a moment. British Muslims are more likely to join ISIS than join the British Army. That's a problem in itself. But going back to the ISIS brides, first of all, they're a terror threat. Some of them may have seen the error of their ways and blah, 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 blah. And that's quite true. Some of them would have done. But should we care? Because we don't know. And is one single decent Australian life worth taking the risk of bringing back someone who may kill Australians, who may indoctrinate the next generation of Australians? And then some of them will just be lying to get back and will still be a danger. We don't know who's who. So it's common sense to say none of you are going back. We're going to base you on your track record. That's what we're basing this on. And something no one ever talks about is this. Let's say we let them back, they integrate, they're absolutely fine. We never have a problem with them. Let's say that's a given. The subconscious message that sends to everybody else in the country is, I can do what I want in this country. I can disrespect this country. I can be an enemy of this country. And they'll always forgive me and they'll always take me back. Where's the deterrent for the new terrorists that are being born today, that are coming through the ranks today? Where's the deterrent that the worst thing that will ever happen to them is they'll let me back and forgive me? That's no deterrent.
No, unfortunately, it's no deterrent of whatsoever. But also, what really irks me off more, and a lot of the Australian population, is they're bringing these ISIS brides back and they're going to jump the queue into housing assistance and welfare assistance and, taking the place of ordinary Australians that have worked very hard in this country, paid their taxes, contributed positively to our society. And yet we're bringing back a group of treacherous traitors and saying, here you go, you can have priority housing, you can have our generous welfare system. over and above people that really need it, our own residents and citizens that have done absolutely nothing wrong and contributed to this country. We're in a cost of living crisis out here in Australia. People are struggling to pay the mortgage, the rent, the bills, and put food on the table to feed their children. Unfortunately, we have a lot of people that are sleeping rough, sleeping in parks, in cars, and in tents. And some of these people hold full-time jobs. And we're going to bring back ISIS brides and give them priority housing and welfare assistance and give them houses with fully fledged with furniture on top. It just ain't right, and it's very, very wrong.
No, absolutely. If a society keeps rewarding poor behavior, then we shouldn't be surprised when we get more poor behavior, because we're rewarding those choices, and that's what we're doing here. Now, when our Labour government got into power just over a year ago, we thought they were going to bring back the ISIS brides. I would have put money on it, but they haven't, because they understand the public anger at this. So even though they probably wanted to, and their constituents and their MPs wanted them to, they realised this is a step too far. We're already in trouble running the country. We don't need to add more fuel to the fire here. What's the public sentiment on the streets in Australia? Surely the average Aussie is screaming about this, because finally they found out what's going on.
Oh, look, the average Aussie is outraged, and the majority of the Australian population are now starting to stand up and march in rallies. Only 2 months ago, we had a rally where 20,000 people attended March for Australia rally. And again, this Sunday, on October 19th, at Hyde Park, at 12 p.m. in Sydney, but across all Australia, there's going to be simultaneous rallies, March for Australia, and it's against excess immigration and ISIS brides coming back and bad government. And again, estimate it's going to be bigger than the first rally, and they're estimating over 20,000 people on these very issues. So the Australian person is, quite frankly, very, very upset and very pissed off.
Is there any sign that your government is listening to the people about this?
Unfortunately, they're not, because if they were listening to the people, they wouldn't be bringing back these absolute treacherous individuals, and they'd be prioritising their own Australian citizens over a group of individuals that have stuck their middle finger up at Australia and said, "Buddy, you all, we're going to go overseas and fight and support terrorism."
Yeah. And it's worse than that, because ISIS wanted to take over the world, and Australia's part of the world. So really, those people over there to indirectly fight Australia, because eventually ISIS, if they would have been successful, would have got to the shores of Australia to make the world an Islamic, an Islamic world. I can't understand the mentality of some of our politicians who can't see traitors in their midst. Steve, it's upsetting that you've got the same problems we've got. I love Australia. It looks like part of your governments are worse than our governments. And I don't think I've ever said that to anybody of any other country in the world at the moment, that your government sounds worse than our government. I didn't think that was possible, but it seems to be true. Steve, thank you so much for coming on today and updating us on the mess Australia is in.
Thank you, Nikki. Take care. God bless.
Bye-bye.